It's still dark on 6th Avenue when your badge lets you in. The lobby TV is muted, but the red numbers crawl anyway. Upstairs, the risk floor is half lit, monitors left on like someone fled mid-sentence. Your inbox is a wall of alerts. One subject line sits at the top and doesn't blink. This is your life, level by level, inside a hedge fund risk seat. Act 1: The empty risk floor. You notice the silence before you understand the math. The air is too cold and the room is too quiet. Half the chairs are empty, half the screens are still logged in, and the glow of old Bloomberg windows makes the floor look abandoned on purpose. You pull up the daily risk pack positions by book, VAR, stress, concentration limits, and the same counterparties repeat like a stutter. One name sits in the single name exposure column again and again, creeping from large to existential. You tab to spreads. They're wider than yesterday. You tab to funding. The overnight haircuts are higher than yesterday. You tell yourself it's just pre-market noise. You tell yourself the open will bring liquidity. You tell yourself the models were built for this. Then you stop thinking in days. You start thinking in hours. You build a scratch sheet. Cash on hand, eligible collateral, maturities, which lines can actually be drawn. Not liquid, but deliverable. Not diversified, but movable before noon. An email lands from the prime broker, intraday margin requirement. The risk floor isn't empty. It's holding its breath, like a diver counting how long the lungs last. Act 2: The margin call clock starts. The market isn't asking if you're right, only if you can pay today. The first call comes in like a courtesy. A calm voice from the margin team, reading from a template. Amount required, eligible forms, timing. Not by close. Now. You mute the speaker, open the collateral schedule, and start matching CUSIPs to what's actually free. Treasuries, maybe. Equities, maybe not. Anything structured suddenly reads like a rumor. You flip to the position blotter. Lines you used to argue about: conviction shorts, off-the-run credit, index hedges become one question. Can you finance it at the new haircut? The haircut isn't a percentage anymore. It's a temperature gauge rising while you're still deciding which door to open. The building feels hollowed out. Traders stop shouting. They whisper. Assistants print term sheets and shove them into shredding bins like muscle memory. You tell yourself it's just a technical call. You tell yourself you can post collateral and buy time. You tell yourself time is the only trade left. Then the number changes while you're on the phone. Haircuts widen again, so the requirement grows in real time. You realize the clock isn't counting down to a decision, it's counting down to a seizure. Act 3: Legal locks the doors, NDA world. Every sentence can become evidence later. They pull you into a glass conference room that's too clean. Legal on one side, compliance on the other. A basket sits in the middle like a checkpoint. No personal phones, no forwarding, no casual hallway talk. You're told investor communication must be pre-cleared, every word routed through legal, every draft retained. A document retention memo slides across the table. Dates. Definitions. What counts as a record? What counts as destruction? The request is chillingly specific. A timeline of risk limit breaches and who signed off. Names, times, email chains, exception memos. Not opinions. Facts. You open your sent folder and feel your throat tighten. There it is, an older approval for a temporary leverage increase, weeks ago, stamped with your own signature. You tell yourself it was within policy. You tell yourself it was time-boxed. You tell yourself everyone wanted it. Now you're not measuring risk. You're manufacturing the narrative that will survive discovery. The glass room isn't for privacy, it's a fish tank, and you can already see the net. You've learned to count cash by the hour and words by the liability. Next, they'll ask for a liquidity plan you can't guarantee while the fire sale button waits under your finger. Act 4: The fire sale button. You're not trading for profit anymore, you're trading for survival under someone else's deadline. By mid-morning, you're standing behind the head trader's chair, watching the blotter scroll like a confession. The prime broker line is open on speaker. Eligible collateral only. No one raises their voice. Keys clack. Someone slides a printout across the desk. A list of what can be sold today without a committee call. You pull up the stress book and it looks like a map of roads that all lead to the same bridge. You start circling positions with fat bid-ask spreads. Off-the-run corporates, bespoke tranches, anything with a dealer quote instead of a screen price. You tell yourself it's just de-risking. You tell yourself you'll buy it back when spreads normalize. You tell yourself a realized loss is better than a forced default. Then the order goes out in pieces, 10 mm here, 5 mm there, trying not to show size. But the market smells it. Bids step back, the prints get worse. You watch your marks gap down between executions, like the floor is moving under your feet. You don't press a button. You bleed out quietly, one liquidity event at a time, until your best ideas are sold at the worst price, like heirlooms at a pawn shop. Act 5: The Run. Investors, gates, and redemption hell. Capital becomes a crowd at the exit, and the door only opens one way. The investor relations inbox becomes a siren you can't silence. Please confirm exposure to Lehman. Are redemptions being honored? Is there a side pocket? Each message arrives with a timestamp that feels like an accusation. In the conference room, someone writes, "liquidity plan," on a whiteboard and underlines it twice. You build a ladder. T+0 cash, T+1 settlements, what you can repo, what you can't. You add the ugly footnotes: restricted stock, CDs, unwind costs, locked up SPVs. You draft a gate proposal. 10% this quarter, the rest pro rata, subject to board approval. You tell yourself a gate is orderly. You tell yourself it buys time to avoid dumping. You tell yourself investors will understand process. The calls start anyway. Pension consultants, fund of funds allocators, family offices with attorneys already on the line. They don't ask about VAR. They ask, when can you wire? A run isn't panic. It's arithmetic with a human voice, and every number you give becomes a promise you might not be able to pay. Act 6: The Last Email. Aftermath and the fall guy choice. When the screens go dark, the record stays, especially the parts with your name on them. After the bell, the floor smells like burned coffee and warm plastic. The Bloomberg monitors finally go black one by one, but your laptop stays bright, open to a draft email titled, "Postmortem. Liquidity and Risk Exceptions." HR has sent a calendar invite with no agenda. Legal has sent another preservation notice, broader this time. You open the exception log. Dates, not stories. Limit breach approved temporary. Haircut increase passed through. Liquidity mismatch mitigation pending. Your signature appears in the margins like a watermark. Someone pings you on chat. Need a name for who owned the leverage decision. The cursor blinks in the empty reply. You tell yourself you were executing directives. You tell yourself the policies were flexible by design. You tell yourself everyone signed something somewhere. But you also know how a committee works when the room needs to shrink. You hit send, or you don't. Either way, you learn the final risk model. Responsibility is the only position you can't hedge. In the end, the market doesn't remember your intentions. It remembers the settlement date, the haircut, the wire that cleared or didn't. You carry numbers that once felt abstract: VAR, basis points, days to liquidity, until they become textures in your body. Titles evaporate. The record remains. And the quiet truth is this: the last risk manager is still just a person, staring at a blinking cursor.